Good evening, all. Warm welcome to all the delegates, senior colleagues, fellow consultants, and junior PGs. So we are back again with this series of Vertigo Talks. We are in our eighth episode of our Vertigo Talks. So today, Dr. Vishal Power, who did his DNB medicine and neurology, and right now working as a specialist neurologist in Aster Specialty Clinics, Discovery Gardens, Dubai. He will be presenting complex cases of few cases of vertigo. And sir, welcome, sir. You can
Yeah,
begin your talk, sir.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sriharsha. So let us begin our episode number 8. Yeah. So coming to the disclaimer, I have nothing to disclose and informed consent obtained from all the patients shown in the presentation, and I'm sharing my personal experience. So coming to the learning objective of this series, as we know that I present complex cases of vertigo, which we can say the cases have taught me so many lessons. So I select the cases depending on the lessons they have taught to me. So let us discuss these cases. Before starting cases, just a brief introduction about today's theme of cases. So as we know that these are the common presentations of vestibular syndromes, that is triggered episodic, spontaneous episodic, acute vestibular, and chronic vestibular syndrome. And there is one more that is drop attack. So these are the central causes, and these are the peripheral causes, and these are the other causes. So we usually we try to differentiate, try to fit each symptomatic presentation into one of these syndrome, and we try to then formulate the differential diagnosis. So now coming to the another aspect, that is etiological aspect of these disorders, vestibular disorders. So if suppose this is the spectrum of vestibular disorders we deal with, there are if we plan to group the vestibular disorders, we can group them into three major types of etiologies. First one is cellular or structural etiology, that we also call it as organic etiology. Then second is functional disorders. There are functional causes of dizziness, and there are psychiatric causes of dizziness. So these are the three etiological dimensions of the vestibular disorders. And if we try to divide them in based on the etiology, the cellular structural, we are quite aware of these disorders, and we usually look forward for these cellular and structural disorders. But if we look at the functional and psychiatric aspects, they are also very common, and they are in fact more common than some of the cellular and structural disorders. And many a times these cellular structural disorders, they are also associated with the comorbid functional and psychiatric disorders. So today's theme is to discuss what are the different vestibular symptoms caused by functional and psychiatric disorders. So as I told, the functional and psychiatric disorders that cause vestibular symptoms are very common, and in fact they are more common than many well-known structural vestibular disorders. So, if we look at the approach which was followed earlier, and even during my residency in like 15 years ago, even I have seen a similar approach, like to divide the disorders into structural or cellular, and try to differentiate it. If it doesn't fit into any of the structural or cellular disorder, then they are dumped into the psychiatric psychiatric cause. And even in 19th century, the functional disorders were totally considered to be of psychiatric origin. And even now also, many a times if you talk about functional, the first thing comes in mind is whether the patient has a psychiatric disorder. So unfortunately, these functional disorders are considered as psychiatric, but the 20th century approach is it has changed. Like the approach has changed, despite of the definition in 1831 by Professor Andrew, that the disorders arising from a change in the mode of action of an organ unrelated to structural or cellular deficits, or psychiatric disorders primarily due to functional alterations in the system. So there is a functional alteration in the system which leads to these disorders, independent of the structural or cellular and a psychiatric disorder. Independent means it can be a trigger, structural or cellular psychiatric disorder can be a trigger, but they can present alone, like they can be present alone in the patient and without evidence of any psychiatric illness also. Of course, they have comorbid psychiatric illness many a times, but it is not obligatory and it should not be considered as a psychiatric cause. Now coming and what happens in these patients is like functional patients who are suffering from functional disorder, the patient is really suffering from it, and patient feels that it is a serious disorder because of suffering, and the physician feels it is a psychiatric because the examination is normal, the reports are normal, and that creates a lot of suffering in the patient mind, and they keep on showing different doctors, and they are given different kind of medication. But it's very important to look at these functional disorders, what are they, how to diagnose and how to treat them. So the coming to the latest approach is the rule-in approach. Like in a patient with structural and cellular disorder or cellular disorder, look for any functional symptoms, look for psychiatric comorbidity. In a patient with functional disorder, look for any like prior structural cellular disorder or ongoing cellular structural disorder, and look for psychiatric comorbidity. So it's very important to look it as a rule in approach rather than a rule out. We can't, if suppose the investigations are normal, examination is normal, we can't just call them as psychiatric. We have to try to find out whether they have functional cause of that symptoms. Now, this is a slide I have borrowed from Professor Dario Iacoviano. It is a very good description of these disorders. Like prior to 1980, it was a binary model, that is organic and psychiatric disorders were completely considered separate, and it was a rule out approach. Once you rule out organic, and it was called as psychogenic in origin. But then came the in 1990s the ternary model, that is there are three different aspects, that is psychogenic, like psychiatric, functional and structural, with a distinct boundary between all of them. Like it was not considered like a combination of disorders also can happen. But this is a spectral model, which is a very nice model to explain these disorders. There are pure psychiatric disorders, pure structural, and pure functional. But as you can see, the psychiatric disorders and functional disorders can be comorbid. They can accompany in the same patient, and all these three disorders can be present in a single patient, like functional, psychiatric, and structural disorders. So this is a spectral model, and the latest model is a spectral model plus, in which one more aspect is added, that is cognitive. So patients of can have, along with the other components, functional, psychiatric and structural, can have cognitive impairment also because of these symptoms. So this is this is how the science is evolving, and we should consider these disorders like not as a separate disorder, but we can try to find out the functional and psychiatric comorbidity in every patient. Now coming to the latest international vestibular research, this thing was published, and the core set of physical symptoms of all these functional causes of vestibular symptoms, like phobic postural vertigo, space motion discomfort, chronic subjective dizziness, and visual vertigo. The core symptoms, set of symptoms, were given like a separate terminology, that is persistent postural perceptual dizziness. Persistent means the symptoms are going on from more than 3 months. Postural means usually the symptoms are severe in the upright posture, and the perceptual means the patients. It is a patient's perception that they have dizziness. Structurally, they may not have. There are a lot of chemical. There is a lot of chemical imbalance or structural changes, like functional changes in the circuits, which is leading to this kind of dizziness. So now coming to the like my registry of around 1280 patients, I in my registry around 10% patients I have around who are suffering from functional dizziness, that is triple PD, and psychiatric causes of dizziness I found were 1.69%. So this 10.37 translates to around 130 patients are I have in my registry, but these are primary functional and psychiatric causes of dizziness. But of course, there are many patients who have associated psychiatric comorbidity, that is psychiatric and functional comorbidity, like patients with vestibular migraine, patients with benign paroxysmal positional vertigo, even patients with functional dizziness, they have associated psychiatric comorbidity, Meniere's disease. So it's very important not to just diagnose one, like there could be one primary disorder, but there can be associated comorbid other disorders which are complicating the illness. Now coming to in patients with these disorders like structural or cellular vestibular disorder, what happens is because once these like acute illness happens or acute or chronic vestibular symptoms happen, if the patients develop a high level of anxiety and body vigilance, and if there are certain personality traits which are predisposed to this, so because of this acute psychological distress of the acute this cellular etiology, it can lead to functional symptoms, like it can cause the triple PD symptoms. So that is one way of developing this functional disorder because of this vestibular or medical conditions. It leads to the transient psychological state, and which leads to this chronic functional disorder. And there are various like precipitating events for this functional dizziness, that is peripheral and central vestibular disorders. Vestibular migraine is a very common disorder which can lead to triple PD. And of course, the psychiatric illnesses can also lead to triple PD. But it is a comorbid illness or a precipitating event. So it can lead to the functional dizziness, but functional dizziness should be treated not as a psychiatric cause, but as a distinct entity apart from the psychiatric illness. The second mechanism how the patients can get the triple PD symptoms is because of acute psychological distress. It can lead to these functional symptoms. So these are the two ways how the patients can develop the functional dizziness. And there are various combinations which can be seen in clinical practice. That is a patient who has structural vestibular disorder and which is triggering the functional dizziness. Patients can have triple PD symptoms along with comorbid psychiatric illness, and all can coexist. Many a times patients have all of them together, like all these three disorders are coexistent, and sometimes it becomes it's very important to treat them individually rather than once we diagnose structural vestibular disorder. For example, a patient comes with acute vestibular neuritis, and we think that it is a structural disorder, and we treat it with the help of medications and vestibular rehabilitation. But it is very important to address the underlying psychological state created by this suffering. And if we address the acute psychological issues, then it can reduce the incidence of triple PD symptoms in these patients. But if the acute anxiety is not taken care of, then the patients can develop triple PD symptoms, and despite of recovery from the structural disorder, they can keep on having getting this symptoms of imbalance, unsteadiness. So it's very important to address this psychological aspect. And there are a group of patients who can have alone functional disorder. Maybe at the onset they had some structural vestibular disorder or a psychological disorder, but they can have alone the triple PD symptoms. Like in once it gets established, the patient may not have any residue of the structural vestibular disorder. Now, let us go. This is last slide regarding the introduction. Then we'll go into the cases. Coming to primary psychiatric disorders like anxiety, depression, panic disorder, it can itself lead to vestibular symptoms. In 8 to 10% of patients in the from the neurotology clinics, primary psychiatric disorders can lead to vestibular symptoms of dizziness, unsteadiness. Then vestibular disorders can cause secondary psychiatric disorder. Patient was psychologically normal, but because of the acute distress they suffer due to the vestibular disorder, it can lead to the secondary psychiatric disorder. In 1 in 8 patient, they can develop this, and even the vestibular disorders can trigger the triple PD symptoms that we know. Then coming to complications like vestibular disorders, if like for example, if a patient has underlying psychiatric disorder and they suffer from vestibular illness, it can lead to it can make the psychiatric disorder very severe. Like the underlying, the anxiety and depression was well managed, well maintained, but suddenly because of this vestibular disorder, the psychiatric disorder can become very severe, and it can itself start manifesting as dizziness, and it can delay the recovery from the vestibular disorder. And similarly, the psychiatric disorders, patients with psychiatric disorder, if they get any vestibular illness, it can trigger the functional dizziness. And the last one is coexistence. Many a times in practice, if we start doing the emotional assessment of the patient, we find that many a times they are coexistent with vestibular disorder. Patients have psychiatric disorder along with vestibular disorder. Patients have functional and psychiatric disorder which are comorbid. So now let us dive into the cases one by one. I will cover these cases which are related to the functional and psychiatric aspects. Coming to case one, 45 years lady. She came to me with dizziness and imbalance from 3 years. 3 years history of this dizziness. And she used to feel like when she used to wake up, she told me that she feels fresh in the morning. There is no dizziness, but dizziness increases as the day progresses. Then because of this severe dizziness, she doesn't go out of the house, and she had fear of crowded places. Like this symptom is called agoraphobia, and she had fear of going to supermarkets and malls, airports. She told me that like she feels very dizzy, uncomfortable in malls, and she had fear of complex lights. For this reason, she consulted several physicians, ENTs, and neurologists in 3 years. And she was hospitalized once for severe dizziness for the same reason. And these several investigations which were normal, and even the cervical spine MRI and MRI brain was done, which was normal. Unfortunately, these patients are considered to be suffering from either cervical like spondylosis, or they are considered to be of directly without assessing their emotions. It's very important to assess the emotions before labeling them as suffering from psychiatric cause. So line. This was the history, and this is the patient. She was able to perform this Romberg's testing. like tandem gait walking, and let us see the modified Romberg's test. She was able to stand on one leg for more than 5 seconds, and the other leg also she was able to stand for more than 5 seconds. So if a person is able to stand on one leg for more than 5 seconds, essentially the structurally the vestibular system is normal. So it's very important in these patients to look for there is one scoring system which I'm going to come to that. So the affected individuals with this particular disorder, like we are suspecting here a diagnosis of triple PD, and it's very important to assess these three components, that is visual component, upright posture, postural component, and the movement component. So it is affected, like it gets affected variably, and there are various triggers in each of these components in these patients. And there was one recent article on this, a validated questionnaire to assess the severity of triple PD. This is called as Naigata Triple PD Questionnaire, NPQ. And it's a very nice article. I recommend everyone reading this article. And there are 12 questions in this questionnaire, and there are 4 questions which are dedicated to the visual triggers. That is, does the dizziness trigger on looking at large store displays? Does the dizziness trigger on watching TV or movies with intense movement? Does the dizziness trigger on watching a scroll screen on a PC or a smartphone? And does the dizziness trigger on reading small letters in a book? And a patient has to like grade the severity of that particular dizziness from on a scale of 1 to 6, where 1 is very mild and 6 is very severe. So we will come to the importance of this visual trigger in triple PD in a short time. Like after in the next slide, I will tell you the importance of visual triggers. In upright posture, for upright posture, there are 4 questions, like walking at natural pace, sitting upright in a seat without back and arm support, standing without touching fixed objects, and striding at a rapid pace. So these are the questions which are related to the upright posture. If you look at patients with triple PD, they have symptoms in upright posture. As soon as they lie down, all patients will tell that they feel good. Like when they lie down, they are relatively better as compared to in upright posture. And the last trigger is the movement trigger, like quick movements such as standing up and or turning their head, riding a bus, car, or a train, performing activities such as household work or light exercise, and riding an elevator or escalator. So these are the questions which are related to the movement trigger. And in this study, what they compared is like they found out the total score in all patients who is suffering from dizziness, and they tried to compare it with patients with triple PD. And what they found was uh, all the patients with triple PD had higher score as compared to the control patients. Okay, it was significantly higher in this group of patients. And if you look at the all the scores, the upright posture score was also high as compared to the like controls. The movement score was also high. But if you look at the visual score, it distinctly differentiated between the patients with triple PD and the controls. It, then the conclusion of this article was, if the visual score is more than 9 out of 24, it has 82% sensitivity and 74% specificity to diagnose patients with triple PD. Okay, so this was very important finding of this study. So visual stimulation score is very important. Yeah. So if we look at this, the visual score, if it is more than 9, the cutoff point, they kept it as 9. Then it was 82% sensitive and 74% specific to diagnose triple PD. and the cutoff score for the total score was 27. If it is more than 27, it was 70% sensitive and 68% specific for the diagnosis of triple PD. So it's a very important scoring system, and not only for triple PD. I find that like I'll just go back and tell you. For example, in patients with vestibular migraine, you will find that many patients have this particular symptom, that watching a scroll screen on a PC or smartphone makes them dizzy. This is a very common symptom in patients with vestibular migraine. So it's very important that like this scoring should be done, and we can try to differentiate between this. And in patients with like post BPPV dizziness, you will find that the movement score is like more like the movement score. For example, quick movements such as standing up, then coming to performing activities such as household work and light exercise. So these are the things which will make the patient walking at natural pace. So these are the triggers for the dizziness in a patient with post BPPV dizziness. So this scoring is very good, and it can be utilized for diagnosing patients with not only triple PD but even in patients with vestibular migraine and post BPPV dizziness. It will help us to come down to a diagnosis. Now, other important findings of this study were the psychiatric status of triple PD patients was not necessarily more anxious or depressive than that of patients with other vestibular disorder. It is very important finding that unfortunately many patients with not only triple PD but other functional disorders also, they are labeled as suffering from psychiatric disease. And the first question to these patients is, do you have stress? And patient many times end up saying, I don't have stress, but like what happens is, this is not a it's very important to offer a proper questionnaire to these patients rather than just asking whether you have stress and you are thinking too much, and because of this problem is happening. These are the commonly told sentences to this group of patients. So it's very important to address their underlying concern. And if you look at the treatment of functional disorder, the first most important aspect of the treatment of these patient is reassurance, and just telling them that yes, you are suffering from genuine disorder, rather than telling them that you are having some stress and it is leading to this problem. It's very important to understand the patient's symptoms. That gives a lot of reassurance to the patient that like somebody is trying to understand the symptoms and like trying to treat these symptoms. So thus triple PD patients should be clearly discriminated from psychogenic diseases in the diagnosis of chronic diseases. So we should differentiate them. And of course, they might have psychiatric comorbidity, but it is very important to try and offer them questionnaires to find it out. So this NIGATA triple PD questionnaire can be used as an adjunct to the clinical diagnosis, and it can assess the severity of the patients. So coming back to the current patient, this case number 1, in this lady, the total score was 43 and the visual score was 13. The cutoff is 9, like cutoff means if it is above 9, it is very much sensitive and specific for triple PD. So in this patient, the visual score was more than 9, and the total score was also more than 27. So it is more likely to be a case of triple PD. And if we look at the diagnostic criteria of persistent postural perceptual dizziness, the symptoms were of more than 3 months in duration. That is, were going from more than 3 months. They were persistent but waxing and waning, and as the day progresses, the symptoms worsen. There can be momentary flares in the day, spontaneously or with sudden movements. And the symptoms are more in upright posture, active or passive motion, and exposure to visual stimuli is a very important trigger. Out of these triggers, the important trigger is exposure to the visual stimuli. And other criterias of this particular disorder are the disorder begins shortly after some illness, like there is some acute vestibular syndrome, or there are other problems with the balance, like vestibular migraine. And the precipitating events can be any of these: acute, episodic, or chronic vestibular syndrome, or even a neurologic illness. I have seen a patient who was suffering from epilepsy had triple PD. Like, it can be because of some other neurologic illness also, or even it could be because of medical illness. Recently, I have seen patient with suffering from COVID who developed this triple PD symptoms. So it can happen because of any other medical illness, and it can happen because of psychological distress. And then once it happens because of acute or episodic precipitant, it can the initially the symptoms are intermittent at first, and then they consolidate and become persistent. And if it is a precipitated by a chronic precipitant, they may develop slowly and gradually they worsen. And the symptoms cause significant distress and functional impairment of the patient, and they are not better attributed to the another disease. So this is these are the diagnostic criteria for diagnosing this. So there are three aspects of treatment of patients who are suffering from this. First is the medications. Okay, the medications are selective serotonin or selective like serotonin norepinephrine reuptake inhibitors, tricyclic antidepressants. So I commonly use amitriptyline in the dose of 12.5 to 25 milligram, and I find it is very useful drug in patients with triple PD. The second line of drug I use is venlafaxine, is also a very good drug, and even the venlafaxine, like 37.5 milligrams. So these are the the common drugs which I use. Even escitalopram can be used in these patients. So like if the, so the treatment for this functional disorder and the like psychiatric illness is same, but that doesn't mean patients have like all these patients have psychiatric illness. The drugs are similar. For example, even in migraine we use amitriptyline. That doesn't mean that patients have depression. All the patients of migraine, of course there are patients they can have comorbid depression. So this is the first form of treatment, that is in terms of medications. Magnesium I give in this patient, and I have found, this is my personal observation, that magnesium and even beta blockers are very useful drugs in these triple PD patients. And they don't have like high efficacy, but of course it helps to a certain extent in these patients. Then coming to the most important aspect, that is emotional component of this patient, counseling is very important in this patient, and referring to a psychiatrist. If they have major depression, it is very important to refer them to a psychiatrist. And vestibular rehabilitation therapy has a lot of role in these patients, because vestibular rehabilitation therapy alone, without even psychiatric like therapy, can be very beneficial, because if the patients are given what happens during the vestibular rehabilitation is that patient get reassured that they feel that their disorder is considered as genuine, and they are given some time, somebody is spending time with the patient. That itself is a very much like useful for patients to recover from these disorders. Coming to the case number two, 27-year gentleman, he came to me with history of like he cannot focus, cannot concentrate. He had fear of falling, and he was telling me that I feel that something is moving fast in my head. And the episodes were lasting for 2 to 3 minutes, and the symptoms were going on from 6 months. And he used to also get palpitation, like once these symptoms start, he used to feel a lot of restlessness and palpitations. And one of the thing he told while giving history is that, doctor, I don't feel happy. And that made me to think that let me go through his scoring system that is called as a patient health questionnaire, that is PHQ-9. It is a very important questionnaire. We should get it filled from these days, like from last few months I have started to get it filled from every patient suffering from dizziness. And you will find that many patients have associated psychiatric comorbidity. They have little interest or pleasure in doing things, feeling down, depressed, and hopeless, trouble falling or staying asleep, feeling tired or having little energy, poor appetite, overeating, feeling bad about themselves, trouble concentrating on the things, and moving or speaking so slowly that others have noticed. And this is the most important question of this questionnaire, that is thoughts that you would be better off dead or hurting yourself. This is very important symptom, even if the person is feeling sometimes it is very significant. And this questionnaire is arranged either not at all, the patient doesn't have that particular symptom, they are suffering it from several days or more than half of the days, and this is offered over a period of last 2 weeks, whether they have every day, more than half of the days, less than half of the days, and not at all. So this questionnaire, and this is the interpretation. If there are 4 ticks in the shaded section, this is the shaded section of this questionnaire. If there are 4 ticks in this particular patient, there were 1, 2, and 3 and 4. There were 3 actually in this particular patient. If there are more than 4, then it is considered as a depressive disorder. It is considered as a major depressive disorder if there are 5 ticks in the shaded section. If it is considered as other depressive disorder if it is 2 to 4 ticks. For example, in this particular patient, there are 3, 1, 2, and 3. And we need to rule out other issues also which are ongoing, and we can monitor the severity of this scale in the follow-up. Okay, and in this patient, I also did the GAD-7. This is called a generalized anxiety depression scale. So in this particular scale, the patient had 17, a score of 17 out of total score of 27. Okay, 21. Okay, the total score is 21, out of which patient score was 17. So this is the interpretation, like if the PHQ-9 and GAD-7, this is the severity, like it can be graded into severity like mild, moderate, moderately severe, and severe. And these are the actions which can be taken. So in this particular patient, the PHQ-9 score was 11. So it falls into this like moderate depression in this patient. So it is a moderate depression, and 17, score of 17 indicates severe generalized anxiety. So it is very important for this patient to be on medications for this anxiety and depression. Cognitive behavioral therapy is important, and whenever it is severe, it is very important to refer this patient to psychiatrist and seek their opinion. So in this particular patient, the patient had generalized anxiety and depression, which was leading to the dizziness. So it is a psychiatric cause for the dizziness. So there were no like associated. I couldn't find any other vestibular disorder. There were no neurological signs. So I started the patient on amitriptyline and referred the patient to the psychiatrist for the control of the anxiety. So this is that's why the primary psychiatric disorders can cause vestibular symptoms, and so it's very important to know that even these primary psychiatric illnesses like generalized anxiety disorder, episodic anxiety, chronic anxiety, fear of falling, vestibular illness, anxiety, and depression can lead to the vestibular symptoms. So prevalence of this particular type of patient is around 8 to 10% in neurotology clinics. Now coming to the case number 3, 37 years lady, she came to me with unsteadiness from 2 years, and each time the unsteadiness lasts for seconds, and it was mainly present in upright posture, and there was no history of migraine. Uh, then I did her that dizziness handicap inventory. Although the dizziness was not very severe, but it was coming every day on a daily basis, and it was lasting for a few seconds. So her dizziness handicap inventory score was 24. Then I did this PHQ-9 and GAD-7, and the PHQ-9 score was 19, which indicates moderately severe depression, and the GAD-7 score was 20, which indicates severe anxiety. So this patient had severe anxiety and moderately severe depression, and that was the cause for her symptoms. I did her examination, which was normal, and she didn't have any history of migraine. So her diagnosis was depression and severe generalized anxiety, which was leading to this particular imbalance of gait, which was, of course, it was not severe in intensity, but she was feeling these vestibular symptoms because of the anxiety and depression, and I started her on escitalopram. So, so this is very important to remember that psychiatric illnesses can lead to the imbalance, despite there is no evidence for triple PD also. In this patient, there were no symptoms of like triple PD. Although she had a trait to develop triple PD, but she didn't have she didn't satisfy that criteria. Now coming to the case number 4, 45-year gentleman, patient had a history of anxiety disorder and depression, and this particular patient suffered from COVID illness on 15th of February 2021. 3 days after his illness, like he had mild symptoms of COVID, he had severe dizziness and headache. And this episode, he had repeated attacks of severe headache and dizziness, which lasted for 1 week. And the duration of each attack of this dizziness was either if ranging from 5 hours to 12 hours. Okay. So, and the headache characteristics of headache were holocranial, pressure sensation in head, severe in intensity. It was associated with phonophobia and photophobia. And patient had around 10 episodes in a month from last 2 months. Like he presented to me recently, and he gave like history of these many episodes. So he had a history of motion sickness in childhood. He had pressure sensation in both the ears, and he had difficulty in focusing and concentrating. So like in pizza, there are toppings. So these are the toppings in the diagnosis. These 3 clues are the clues for vestibular migraine. And I consider them as toppings for vestibular migraine, because many a times you find that patients with vestibular migraine, they have history of motion sickness in the past. Many patients feel pressure sensation in both the ears. Many patients get episodic blockage of the ears, like bilateral or unilateral blockage, and it opens up. Many patients give even history of tinnitus. Episodic tinnitus comes and goes, either bilateral or unilateral. So cochlear symptoms are also very common in vestibular migraine patients. And as I told while telling about the Naigata triple PD questionnaire, the difficulty in focusing and concentrating is a very common symptom of vestibular migraine. You will, as soon as I hear this symptom, I like really look forward for diagnosis of vestibular migraine. It is very commonly seen in vestibular migraine. Then the patient didn't have any hearing loss, agoraphobia to like suggest triple PD, to suggest any like Meniere's disease. And there were no diurnal fluctuation to suggest again the triple PD. And the current symptoms of the patients, when the patient presented to me recently, the patient told me that he wakes up in the night time, he feels very dizzy, he feels very restless, and he is not able to fall asleep, and he gets even palpitations during those attacks. And there were Currently, his headache is very much under control. So with this history, the patient came. Then I did his scorings. Like first, I did his dizziness handicap inventory. The score was 22 out of 100. So the dizziness was like it was not very high. The score was around 22, but I could see that patient was suffering a lot, like episodically. When during the episodes, the patient was getting panic because of the condition. And then I did this GAD 7 score and this PHQ 9 score. The GAD 7 score was 13 and GAD this PHQ 9 score was 15. And you can see here, there is one tick here, that is thoughts of that you are better, you would be better off dead or hurting yourself. And see, after giving this questionnaire, starting to use this questionnaire, I have found that just diagnosing depression or anxiety on the face value is not like appropriate. Many a times we tend to decide how the patient is talking, how the patient is sitting. But it's very important to offer this validated questionnaire to come to that conclusion, and directly telling you are anxious, you have stress, you are thinking too much. It's very important to first offer this questionnaire, and I will tell you that offering this questionnaire is rewarding. Like many a times I have like one case I'm going to present, the next case is patients literally cry. Some of the patients while writing this scores, they literally cry. There, some of the patients are suffering on a daily basis. They are getting thoughts of a better off dead, and it's very important to address this dimension of their suffering. So, and you can see the life is extremely difficult. This question is particularly about how are they able to manage their work and at home. So it was extremely difficult for the patient to manage the work. So in this patient, the PHQ-9 was 13, and that indicates moderate depression. And the GAD-7 was 15. So GAD-7 was 15, so it was suggestive of moderate anxiety and even the moderate depression, like the PHQ-9 was 13. So in this patient, the cognitive behavioral therapy and pharmacotherapy must be considered. And so let us see the sequence of events in this patient. The patient had baseline anxiety and depression. Patient suffered from a medical illness like COVID illness. Patient had vestibular migraine. It is very like currently I'm like collecting cases around. I have 5 cases where COVID related symptoms of dizziness. I will present maybe in the next vertigo talk. I will club the cases which are related to COVID. So this migraine is very common post-COVID. I'm sure you all might be also seeing cases post-COVID suffering from severe migraine. So this particular patient had a terrible vestibular migraine post-COVID, and his underlying anxiety and depression worsened after that. There was increase in his underlying baseline anxiety and depression after suffering from this COVID and vestibular migraine. And currently, because of this, he's suffering from panic attacks and dizziness in the night time, and he's feeling restless. That was my final conclusion, because his brain scan was normal, his VNG testing was normal, and he had neurological examination was normal. So this is the sequence of his events. He had baseline anxiety, depression. He suffered from COVID illness, which led to severe migraine and vestibular migraine. There was there was aggravation of his baseline anxiety and depression, and now currently the dizziness symptoms were related to his anxiety and depression. So this is how the what happens is, the patients who have underlying psychiatric disorder, if they suffer from a vestibular illness, the psychiatric disorder aggravates, they become severe. The anxiety and depression can become severe after suffering from vestibular disorder. And it itself, the psychiatric disorder itself can start manifesting as dizziness, and it can delay the recovery of the patient. So it's very important to address this particular aspect of the patient. Coming to the next case, 30 years gentleman, he came to me with history telling that he has a brain fog, and he feels pressure sensation in head. He has fear of fall, and the duration of symptoms were 2 years, and the symptoms were mainly in upright posture, and they were better on lying down. So this is the symptoms with which the patient came, and the symptoms were continuous in nature, but they were waxing and waning. Like there were a lot of variations in the symptoms. Like sometimes it was more severe, sometimes it was less severe. Patient had history of agoraphobia. That is when he goes to malls, crowded places. He told that he feels very much dizzy, uncomfortable, and again the same symptom that he feels fresh on waking up, and dizziness increases as the day progresses. And the triggers for dizziness were lack of sleep and caffeine intake, and it was relieved in supine position and after exercise. And this dizziness started with severe episode of headache and dizziness 2 years ago. So he's before the start of his illness, like that is 2 years ago, he had an episode of severe headache along with the vertigo, after which the current episode, like all this history started of continuous dizziness. So looking at his history, then I went into the details of the headaches he was suffering. It was periorbital, hemicranial, occipital, sometimes occipital, throbbing in nature, severe in intensity, associated with photophobia, phonophobia. And it was once a month in frequency, and he was getting it from 5 years. And he had history of motion sickness in childhood, and he had bilateral episodic tinnitus, which we can think as a topping for the diagnosis of vestibular migraine. And he also had this episodic ear blockage and history of motion sickness in the childhood. So with this history, the patient came, and then I checked this particular questionnaire, which I give to every patient who is suffering from headache. Then he had emotional stress as a trigger for the headache, excessive thoughts, excessive use of electronic devices, skipping meals, exposure to bright lights and loud noise, reduced sleep or excess sleep, dehydration, and certain foodstuffs. And one more thing, the patient told me that I do not know, but I feel coffee increases my dizziness. So I'm seeing quite a number of patients with like triple PD who have a lack of sleep and caffeine intake as a trigger for their dizziness. And exercise and supine position, that is already described in literature, but especially this lack of sleep is one of the trigger for dizziness. Now coming to uh, quality of life. The quality of life of the patient was severely impaired, and he left his job because of these symptoms. Because of these symptoms, because of the dizziness suffering, he left his job. And you can understand, like in 2 years, he consulted 20 doctors, like 5 neurologists, 5 ENTs, 4 internal medicine, 6 general physicians. MRI brain was done 3 times. MRI cervical spine was done 2 times. Audiometry was normal. He was on beta histine without any improvement. And every time he visited a new doctor, either there was change of brand of beta histine, or the dosages were increased, like from 16 to 24, or to change from betahistine to cinnarizine, from cinnarizine to dimenhydrinate. But there was no relief of the patient's symptoms. So I did his Niagara triple PD score. It was 46, and this is one of the patient where I got the highest score, and the visual score was 11. The postural score was 15, and the movement score was also 15. It is a very high score. A score of more than 9 visual score is highly sensitive and specific for the diagnosis of triple PD, and a total score of more than 27 is a highly sensitive and specific again for triple PD. So in this patient, the scoring was very high, and you can see the dizziness handicap inventory score was also very high. It was 58 out of 100. So many of the things he was having on a daily basis, always there were a lot of symptoms which were so on a daily basis. Because of your problem, do you feel frustrated? And because of your problem, do you restrict your travel, business, or pleasure? So patients have suffered tremendously from these issues, and it's very important to identify them. Just offering them these questionnaires gives them so much relief that at least somebody is taking care, like somebody is asking this particular question, and they also realize how much it is affecting their quality of life. And if you look at this particular question, there were 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 ticks in this shaded area. So more than 5 indicates depression, like major depression. In this patient, there were 7 ticks, and the score was 19. The PHQ-9 score was 19, and the GAD-7 score was 19, which amounts to severe generalized anxiety. So you can see the amount of suffering of this patient, and this PHQ-9 was like in this patient, I'm sorry, it was 19, not 11. It was 19, so it amounts to moderately severe depression, and GAD-7 was, let me see, GAD-7 was 19. So that also amounts to the severe anxiety. So this particular patient had severe anxiety and moderately severe depression. So sequence of events in this patient, I will tell you. The patient suffered from severe attack of vestibular migraine, which led to triple PD. And because of the suffering of triple PD from last 2 years, the patient has developed severe depression and severe generalized anxiety. So it's very important to address each and individual disorder. Like we should address the underlying triggers for the migraine. We should treat the migraine, treat the triple PD symptoms with drugs, with cognitive behavioral therapy, and with the help of vestibular rehabilitation, and treat the underlying psychiatric disorder. Take help from psychiatrist, and it's very important to treat the patient comprehensively. Now coming to the last 2-3 cases, which are very short. 25 years lady, she came with imbalance of gait from 3 weeks, feeling of tiredness, continuous feeling throughout the day. The feeling keeps fluctuating, and there was no history of agoraphobia. She feels better in the morning, and imbalance worsens as the day progresses. And the imbalance it was present only on standing, walking, and she feels better on lying down, which is a common symptom of triple PD. She had associated headache, which was holocranial, non-throbbing, mild in intensity, associated with phonophobia, photophobia, nausea. The frequency was 1 to 2 times per week, and it was from 6 months. And there was no tinnitus, hearing loss, fullness of ears, no history of motion sickness. And I did her like PHQ-9. It was like the score was 10, and this GAD-7 also score was 8. There was a score of 8. So patient had mild anxiety and moderate depression. So in this particular patient had underlying migraine. Then patient had a triple PD trait, like patient had symptoms of triple PD, and patient had mild anxiety and depression. So it is very common to find that many a times it is not an isolated disorder. It is not isolated vestibular migraine, or it is not isolated triple PD. Many a times these patients have comorbid depression, comorbid anxiety, comorbid triple PD, and it's very important to address each aspect of the disease. So this is how what happens. It is like a forest. We have to address each issue differently, and some disorders come together. Patients may not be having purely one disorder. It is very important to see the other comorbidities. Then coming to the next case, 48 years female, spinning vertigo lasting less than a minute from 5 years with or without headache. Sometimes it was associated with headache, sometimes it was not. The headache was typically migrainous, hemicranial, alternating sides, increased by movement, associated with phonophobia, photophobia, 3 times per week, history of headaches from last 10 years. So it was typical of migraine, and the triggers for headache were typical, like typical triggers for a migraine. And I offered her this questionnaire. The GAD-7 questionnaire was 21 out of 20 out of 21. The total score is 21. Out of that, patient had a score of 20. And PHQ-9, the patient had a score of 21. If you can see, the patient was getting these thoughts, suicidal thoughts, on a daily basis. She was having these thoughts, and she had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 ticks in this particular PHQ-9 questionnaire in the shaded area. That amounts to major depression. On a daily basis, she was getting suicidal thoughts. So it is definitely a case of severe depression. And honestly, I'll tell you, this particular patient, when I offered this questionnaire, she started crying when she started reading this questionnaire. And when she entered in my clinic and she told me about the vestibular symptoms and her migraine, she was looking seemingly normal. That's what I want to emphasize, that point, that it is very important not to decide whether the patient has depression or anxiety based on looking at how they are telling their history, or you look anxious, you look depressed. It's very important to actually offer the questionnaire, and then we can uncover their depression. And it's very important to offer these questionnaires. So this PHQ-9 was 21, that amounts to severe depression. And this GAD-7 was also around 20, that is also amounts to severe generalized anxiety. So definitely the patient is a candidate for psychiatry referral and starting pharmacotherapy. And why I presented this particular case is, in this particular patient, it is very important not to start any medicine which aggravates their depression. For example, for migraine, if you don't offer this questionnaire in this patient and this patient has typical migraine, so just if you start the patient on beta blockers or topiramate or flunarizine, their depression is going to worsen. The patient is already at the age of severe depression. So it's very important to offer these patients antidepressant as a first choice of medication, even for the migraine, rather than giving some medication, prophylactic medication, which can worsen their underlying depression. So this particular patient had probable vestibular migraine because she didn't satisfy the definite vestibular migraine criteria. She had severe anxiety and severe underlying depression. So the choosing, which medication to choose in a patient with migraine, will be decided by going through these questionnaires and looking at this comorbid anxiety and depression. So this patient was started on antidepressant. Don't start medication that induce depression. That is the most important message from this particular patient. And whenever possible, like, refer to a psychiatrist rather than just bluntly telling the patient you have depression, you think too much. It's very important to refer this patient to a psychiatrist, and refer to psychologist for counseling. Coming to the last case, 26 years lady, spinning dizziness lasting for 1 to 2 minutes from 20 to 25 days. It was a positional in nature. She had again headache, throbbing in nature, severe in intensity, increased by movement, associated with photophobia, nausea. And the headache was daily from 15 days. She was a diagnosed case of depression from 6 months, and earlier she was started on the medication, and she stopped from 1 month. It was stopped. She was on escitalopram, and it was stopped from 6 months, 1 month. So she presented again with the symptoms, and her this PHQ-9 like score was 16. You can see there were 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 ticks in the shaded area. So that amounts to major depressive disorder, and her score for anxiety was 13. So she was having moderately severe anxiety. So this was her status, like she had moderately severe depression and moderate anxiety. So this particular patient had vestibular migraine, depression, and associated generalized anxiety disorder. So these last 2-3 cases were to highlight that many a times these patients have associated comorbidities. So comorbidities help us to know which medication to start rather than going for beta blocker, flunarizine, or the topiramate. It is very important to start antidepressants like amitriptyline, venlafaxine, desvenlafaxine in this group of patients. So that ends this particular presentation. I'm really thankful to Dr. Sriharsha and Sastra NT Foundation, and I would be happy to answer your questions.
Thank you, sir. Very informative talk. Thank you for sharing a lot of your inputs and your experiences in seeing all these 8 various interesting cases. So we have 4 questions from the audience, sir, and meanwhile, I'll unmute all the participants. They can interact with you if they wish.
Yeah.
So, Dr. AS, how can an organ change its mode of function without structural or cellular changes in the organ? Kindly explain.
Yeah. I would say that this is excellent question. What happens basically in this group of patient is, suppose, for example, a patient suffers from attack of vestibular migraine, okay, or for example, BPPV, suppose, and you reposition the BPPV, the structural disorder has gone, okay, but because of that attack, particular attack of BPPV, we see that many patients develop severe anxiety and body vigilance, and that causes chemical imbalance in brain, or that's how I explain to the patient, but it causes functional alterations in the system, like functional alterations in the brain. And as we know that vestibular system has a lot of autonomic connections, and because of that autonomic impact, like emotional impact, like for example, apart from the autonomic connections, the vestibular system is also connected with the emotional centers like amygdala, and that leads to that emotional affection of the patient, and that leads to a lot of changes at the cellular level, like it leads to a lot of, for example, despite the system coming back to normal function, like for example, the patient has recovered from the vestibular illness, but still the patient doesn't believe on the vestibular system for the balance. So they start depending on the visual system, and they start depending on the the somatosensory system for the balance. So these patients, what happens is they are, despite the vestibular system being normal, they more rely on the visual cues and the somatosensory cues. And whenever they go to an environment where the visual cues are not properly placed, for example, they go to a supermarket, and when the visual cues are not proper, they go to open places, crowded places, when the people are moving in different direction, the optic flow is disturbed on both the sides, then they develop, then they can't rely on the that system is also impaired, and then they feel dizzy, more dizzy in this particular environment. So there are certain triggers which are very common in this group of patient. And yes, you are right, structurally they can be normal, they are normal, but of course, many a times these patients have underlying structural deficits also. For example, if a patient has suffered vestibular neuritis and it is uncompensated, it is a structural deficit. But in episodic disorders also you can see like vestibular migraine and BPPV. Despite the structure coming back to normalcy, these patients continue to have these functional alterations, and it can lead to this particular type of dizziness. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, sir. So this one more question from the same doctor. What are the other functional disorders apart from PPPD?
Yeah. So if you look at these, if you are asking me about the functional vestibular disorders, there are other disorders which were named different times in the history. For example, it everything started with Westphal's agoraphobia, when people visited a market in, I think, Germany, and they developed a lot of dizziness. So it was called as Westphal's agoraphobia. So initially there was a debate whether this disorder is functional, this not functional. This disorder is whether it is psychiatric origin or it is pure neurologic in origin. But later on, with as the understanding improved, functional disorders are a separate group of disorders, and they can have associated comorbidities, and they can be triggered by any of the structural disorders. So other disorders which are explained in literature are chronic subjective dizziness, then phobic postural vertigo, visual vertigo, space motion discomfort. But what happened is in 2017, the Barani Society, in 2009, they formed a core group for to classify these symptoms, core symptoms, and all the core symptoms of all these disorders were classified as triple PD. So currently the nomenclature for these disorders is triple PD, but of course you can find other disorders also which I have mentioned. And if you are asking me other functional disorders, there are lot of many other functional neurologic disorders. There is a separate book on various functional neurologic disorders: functional dysphagia, functional movement disorder, functional seizures, functional. There are many other disorders which are functional in neurology, and there are many disorders in every specialty. Cardiac, atypical chest pain is a very common functional disorder in cardiology. Irritable bowel syndrome is a very common functional disorder in gastroenterology. In ENT practice also there are some disorders like functional dysphagia, dysphonia. So in every specialty, there are multiple these functional disorders. In our vestibular practice also, these are the disorders, but they are clubbed under this triple PD. Yeah.
Hello, Sriharsha.
Sir, Rohit, yes, sir. You can go ahead, sir.
Hello.
Yeah, Vishal, very nice lucid presentation on triple
Dr.
PD.
Sriharsha.
I remind it. Am I audible? Hello.
Hello.
Yes, sir. Audible, sir. You can go ahead. Sir.
Okay, I'll go for the next question.
Vishal,
Then the next question is kindly provide the certificate link. That is okay.
Sir,
that is already provided.
Sir, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, Rohiwal sir is
Vishal.
speaking.
Yes, sir.
Vishal, namaskar. Very nice lucid presentation about P3D. It reminds me of the discussion which we had before you were to go ahead give talk on this topic in the online vestibular diploma course. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
And the triggers which you had quoted in your talk, the commonest situation we come across here is traffic signals. When there is a traffic on the both sides, it is at halt, and the moment the traffic starts moving, the person gets a dizzy attack. That is a very common thing. Another thing which you had quoted about the magnesium used in prophylactic treatment of vestibular migraine, I have come across a few cases of paralytic ileus if the magnesium sulfate salt is used, not the other salt. And third thing which I wanted to add is about the post-COVID scenario. We are coming across cases, those who are presenting with the drop attack, and there is known above 75-80 age group. 3-4 cases recently we have come across. There are no vestibular sign symptoms. Nothing is detected on a neurological examination. Patient is seen by neurologist. And this post-COVID drop attacks is very common. What is your experience? I don't know.
Sir, so far I have not seen, but post-COVID I'm seeing few things. Like for example, I'm seeing patients with chronic fatigue syndrome, like severe fatigue, memory disturbances, and even those patients who never had migraine attacks, patients are coming with severe migraines, and already if they had a migraine history, then they are coming with increase in frequency and severity. Then I'm seeing, I mentioned there are few cases where patients had vestibular migraine. One patient had triple PD after this COVID illness. And one interesting thing I found is one lady, she had suffered from COVID illness and she presented with constant dizziness. I was honestly, I was suspecting triple PD, but she was not improving. She came for two times to visit me and she was not improving. And then I did her blood pressure monitoring, like supine and standing, and I found that she had postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, and she's
Yeah,
around 6 years lady. So I didn't find a patient with drop attack, but I like these are the cases which I have seen post COVID.
Another thing which not only me but many of my ENT colleagues they have come across all over India. We are getting lot of cases of sudden sensor neural loss.
Oh
The
yeah, yeah.
very common presentation in this COVID picture. Thank you,
Yes, sir.
Vishal. It was a wonderful session by you, and my congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
And thank you, Sri Harsha, for a very unique activity which you have been conducting. My congratulations to you too.
Thank you, sir. We'll be seeing your lecture soon.
I'm sharing and I'll be in touch with you soon.
Yes.
I want to deal about the basics regarding this vestibular disorders. For PGs especially.
Thank
you,
sir.
Sri Harsha, and thank you, Vishal.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, so moving on to next question. So, sir has already spoken about magnesium. So, Dr. Abba has posted, Dr. Power, all your patients are quite young. On the contrary, we see elderly patients more with dizziness. Your opinion, sir? Comment?
Yeah, see, if we look at dizziness, yes, it is very common in elderly population. And every time what I'm doing is I'm clubbing cases, few cases. So for example, today, the theme was psychiatric and functional aspect of dizziness, which is very common in middle-aged population, young population. So that's why today you saw all the cases were young. In elderly, if somebody patient presents with dizziness, psychiatric or functional is not something which consider first. We definitely consider of in any patient for that matter, we first think of structural and cellular etiologies. So and one more thing aspect I would like to tell. I'm practicing here in UAE. Most of the population is young and active working population. So majority of my patients are, I agree that majority of my patients are young, and I do see patients who are elderly and they come with like central vestibular disorders or other disorders like hemodynamic disorders, postural hypotension. And you have rightly pointed out these are young patients, but because they are suffering from psychiatric and functional etiologies, this is like that group of patients. Yeah.
Sir, Dr. A.S., one more question from Dr. A.S. I read on a patient blog that magnesium glycinate is much more effective than other magnesium salts. Is that true and scientific? What is the dose of magnesium and riboflavin for migraine?
Yeah. So, see, like there are three salts of magnesium. One is oxide, another is citrate, and this glycinate. Even I read about this glycinate. It is better preparation than other magnesium salts with less gastric discomfort. For example, magnesium is known to cause cramps in the abdomen. It can cause laxative action because it is a laxative. So the glycinate preparation, it is claimed that it is like better and it is more gastric friendly. Yeah, I do use it. Like I do use one preparation, but I'm currently not in a position to like I have to really see well oxide versus glycinate. We have to just like categorize patient and study that. That is one. And the is that true and scientific? Like I will go through the literature and I'll come back maybe in the next talk. And what is the dose of magnesium and riboflavin? So you see magnesium dose, if you look at children, adults, males and females, it is different. For example, if you look at the dosing, the daily requirement is around 300 to 450 milligrams per day, 300 to 400 milligrams. And if you give magnesium in the dose of 400 milligram therapeutic dose in patients with migraine and also in triple PD, I have seen patients have good improvement, like especially in migraine. If you find in your practice that some patient is not willing to take a daily medication for migraine, not getting convinced, convince them for magnesium because it is very easy to tell them that it is a supplement. And recently, I read one study in which it says that magnesium is effective for even the acute attack. They studied intravenous preparation, of course, but it's a very good drug for even for the acute attack. They tried intravenous magnesium sulfate for acute attacks of migraine. So it is the dose of magnesium I told that is 400 milligrams per day, and riboflavin is also good for migraine, and I think dosage of 20 to 40 milligram is good for migraine. Many a times this magnesium along with the riboflavin combination is coming. Some brands are there, and it can be useful for migraine.
So, Dr. Bhavani is asking, what is the non-rotatory vertigo? Can you cite any examples?
Yeah, see, for example, the recent classification, if you read about the recent classification of Barani Society of Vestibular Symptoms, they have classified vertigo not only as a rotatory sensation, like rotatory means spinning sensation. There are some non-rotatory types of vertigo. For example, you feel that environment, there is a shaking of the environment, even tilting of the environment, like tilt. That is also considered as a vertigo. That is a non-rotatory vertigo. Rotation means spinning, but non-rotatory vertigo means feeling of like pushing, tilting to one side, or like shaking of the environment. That can also be considered as vertigo. That is non-spinning vertigo. Yeah.
Treatment for sensorineural hearing loss post-COVID. I think this is not
Oh,
related to this
I
topic.
think you are Ian. This is question some question to auditory side. Like I'm taking care of vestibular.
Yeah, this is not related. So, sir, thank you, sir, for your excellent input. There's one more question. Any diseases with non-rotatory vertigo?
Yeah, there are. See, for example, you tend to get, for example, in vestibular migraine, you can. I have seen patients who come with history of shaking of the environment. They can tell not spinning sensation, true spinning sensation. They can tell the shaking of environment. Even in patients with triple PD, patients can have a non they don't have spinning sensation. They feel unsteady or pushed to one side. They can feel non vertiginous sensations, which are like dizziness, unsteadiness. So these are in otolith dysfunction. Also, you can get non-rotatory vertigo. So these are some of the disorders in which you can get non-rotatory vertigo. Yeah.
Dr. Abha, can you elaborate more about visual scoring questions?
Yeah, so the visual score this is very important for a diagnosis of triple PD. There are 4 questions in that score. The first question is one is large store displays. When the person is walking on the road, there are large store displays. If they develop dizziness on watching those large store displays, that is one question we should ask. Second question is when they are watching TV or like movies with intense movement, like when there is a movement. For example, one patient told me that he went to watch one 3D movie and he was very much dizzy. So these are the scenarios in which patients can feel dizzy. There's some patients with triple PD will tell you that they have stopped watching TV because of that movement in the on the electronic screen. They can't watch moving stimuli. That is second, the visual score. Then the third is a scroll screen on the mobile or the PC, like laptop. And this symptom is also common in triple PD, and it's very common symptom in migraine. I told vestibular migraine, the patients commonly have this scroll screen. If you see a patient who has problem in scrolling the screen, they develop dizziness alone without any other visual symptoms. It is more likely to be vestibular migraine. That is the third visual symptom. And the fourth one is when they are reading small books, books with small letters. Then if they are, it is the dizziness is getting provoked, then that is also one of the visual trigger in patients with triple PD. Of course, it can be seen in any of the vestibular illness, but specifically if the visual score is going more than 9, is very sensitive and specific for the diagnosis of triple PD. Yeah.
बन गया
And
चलो खाना खाइए बात तो सुनो मेरे सवाल तक पूछ दे नहीं साले
So, sir, I think that concludes the Q&A session for today. Thank you very much, sir, for sharing your experiences with our audience and us. We are very much excited to see you again next Friday, 7:30 p.m. I hope all the audience are getting a beautiful insights, and we are very much thankful to Dr. Vishnu Pava sir for sharing his experiences. So we'll be seeing you again next Friday, next month, first Friday. Thank you.
thank you.